Hello, Psychologies magazine readers, subscribers, and general fans. My name's Mary Fenwick. I write the Agony Art column for Psychologies magazine, and I'm here today popping on to do a quick Facebook Live on what is a bank holiday weekend in the UK, and I'm going to talk about journaling. This has been on my mind a lot recently. And I want to talk about what are the reasons that you might be thinking about writing a journal. And I think a lot of people could be thinking about it at the moment. What are some tips that I've learned over my 40-something years of keeping a journal? And what are some ideas for what you could write about if you don't know where to start? If you want to get these tips in a written format, you can either DM me on Facebook or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you put Psychologies magazine in the subject line, I'll connect with you and I'll send you this written up resource. So, journaling. If there's any one word that I use to describe myself, I guess it's a writer. I've identified as a writer for probably most of my, not only my adult life, my teen life, and going back into childhood, I remember feeling that I was a writer. I've been writing a journal. So I recently found, not so long ago, my first ever journal, which would have been in, I think it was in it was definitely in the 1970s, and it recorded the arrival at school of the then girl who I still know and was my best friend through primary school. And she came to school that day wearing green socks, and that was a bit of a social faux pas. So I've been keeping a journal for decades, but where it really, really came into its own was 12 years ago when my husband died suddenly and unexpectedly. And we had 4 children who were then aged 13, 12, 10, and 8. Not only that, but as some people know, on the day of his funeral, I got the news that the magazine I'd been editing had collapsed. So I felt as if I'd lost all structure, all routine. My best friend, the person who I could talk to, I felt, despite all my friendships, which were amazing, at the very core of me, I felt very alone and lost. And that is where journaling really helped. So I am pretty evangelical about journaling. And I want to share with you just a few of the pieces of research about why journaling helps and works. Actually, reminder to myself, I'm just going to scribble this down, little health warning as well. So the first way in which journaling can help is that it makes you more aware of what your own particular triggers are. So just describing what you're feeling stressed about, or just describing incidents, will help you to become more aware of your own patterns. The second reason that I really believe in journaling is that it's a way to process difficult emotions. And there are specific techniques to do with this. But there is one study which found that students, for example, who journaled about a relationship breakup under kind of experimental and guided conditions, the ones who journaled had fewer symptoms of a cold. So this is at a period of time after writing the journals. So journaling can help, amazingly, with boosting immunity, it seems. The research into the actual mechanisms, has been going on for about 30 years. It's not really pinned down, but there's enough evidence to show that something is going on, that processing our difficult emotions on paper does help us physiologically. And a final piece of research that I wanted to share, which is amazing. This is the first time I'd come across it. And the reason I believe it is it's quoted on the website of Berkeley University. In a study of engineers who'd lost their jobs, one set of engineers were encouraged to write in detail about their emotions, and the other set of engineers, as a control, were asked to write kind of non-emotionally or about time management or something like that. And I'm going to read these statistics just to make sure that I get it right. 7 months later, more than half of the engineers who had written emotionally had a new job. And that was 3 times as many compared to the groups who wrote about time management or didn't write at all. Researchers believe that writing had helped the engineers to work through their feelings of anger, so they might have made a better impression in job interviews when they were asked about their previous employer. So those are the 3 research reasons to start journaling: to become aware of your stress patterns, to process difficult emotions, and in at least one case, the research has found that it helped this set of people to get another job. So what if you are, open enough to the benefits to want to try journaling, or maybe you have tried it in the past and it hasn't worked? These are my ideas about what might help you get started this time round. And the first is to be relatively unambitious. So, for example, at the moment, I'm doing the artist's way. And if you're familiar with that, you know that Julia Cameron is really quite rigid. I'm not sure if anybody else can hear my washing machine in the background. But in the artist's way, Julia Cameron is really evangelical about her morning pages, and she insists on the 3 pages of A4 paper written longhand first thing in the morning. Now, I would suggest that being quite that rigid doesn't work for people who are starting out. And what I've said to other people when I've helped them to get going on the artist's way, for example, is just set yourself a timer and write for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. There is research that shows even writing for 15 minutes for 4 days in a row makes a difference. So being proactive about processing an emotion in this structured way for 15 minutes, 4 times in a row, a total of 1 hour, makes a difference. My next tip is about routine. And again, I don't believe it has to be first thing in the morning. I've equally, at different times in my life, found that writing a journal last thing at night helps to clear my mind, helps me reflect on the day with gratitude, and helps me sleep better. So it could be first thing in the morning. It could be right at the end of the day. It might even be during the day, but I think during the day makes it more likely that life will get in the way. A key element is to tie your new journaling habit into an existing habit. So I now write my journal in the morning as I'm having my first cup of coffee. And you can try it one way for a week, review it, and get really precise about what got in the way. What exactly stopped you journaling at that particular time? And shake it up if you want to, but pick a time, try to stick to it, and become conscious of what exactly is getting in the way. And my third tip about practically getting going is to pay some attention to your materials, but don't get so obsessed that it puts you off. I specifically recommend hand writing a journal for a number of reasons. One is the science, again, says that we process information slightly differently when it literally passes through our body to our hand and is handwritten on paper. Another is that I think a regular routine of doing something that is offline is helpful. And yeah, my third thing is, strangely, I think it can be easier to deal with wanting to keep things a secret in a handwritten journal. That might seem counterintuitive, but you can burn it, and you can really control who finds it. So I pay attention to the materials that I use, but I'm more obsessed about my pen than my notebook. For example, I have found that having a beautiful notebook actually puts me off writing a journal. because the purpose of journaling is to accept imperfection and to allow my thoughts to be unformed and messy. So if you've got this far, you've had 3 tips on the research, 3 tips on the practicalities, which are setting a short space of time, picking some sort of routine, and paying attention to your materials but not being obsessive. What if you simply don't know where to start? Well, I'm actually going to be running an online journaling program, a supported program, which is going to be a paid program, but I'm going to give you my top 3 tips. So these are my tips about where to start with writing if you really feel like you don't know where to start. The first one is to start with real concrete details, and that is, what can you see, what can you hear, what can you, I'm having to look up what the senses are, smell, what can you feel? So for example, at the moment, I can hear the washing machine. I can hear my laptop engine. And I can't hear much else because we're under lockdown, there's no traffic, I've got the doors closed, there's no birdsong. I might write about what I can smell, what I can taste. So getting really concrete can be a way of getting started with journaling. Another tip with the getting concrete is to add in a colour. So I'm looking at a wall which is reddish brown, the mortar is yellow, this cupboard beside me is blue, sometimes grey. My laptop is sitting on a pile of books. One of them has got a black cover, one's got a red cover, one's got a blue cover, one is white with blue writing. So you can imagine if you're just capturing all this, that the point on a certain level is just to get the muscles going and get into the habit of writing. So my first tip is to be really concrete. My next tip is a little bit different, but it's to write your thoughts without reflection. So it's the stream of consciousness. And I wrote down my stream of consciousness, or sort of a hypothetical stream of consciousness. It might be, I don't know why I'm doing this. It feels weird. What if it was a different pen? Shall I buy another pen? Can I be bothered? What happened to that photo? Oh, I wonder what happened to that Facebook book group about the pens that I'm obsessed with. And if, for example, you hit a blank or feel like you don't know what to write, you literally write, I don't know what to write. I feel like I've hit a blank. And then get curious about the blank. What is a blank? Is it like a page? Is it like seeing a white page? Is it like seeing visually a representation of radio static in my head? What can I hear when I feel like I've written a blank? So this is my second tip for getting writing with a journal, is to almost make the pen into something that's pulling those strands of wool out of your head. As you have the thought, you write it down. And my final tip is to set a timer for 10 minutes. This is an even shorter time just to get you going, and literally write without stopping. If you feel as if you want to stop, write, I want to stop. I'm not going to stop. I've set myself the target. I'm going to write for 10 minutes. I'd love to know how much time is left. What if I just looked around? I can feel the urge to look up. I can't be bothered with this. What is the point? Why did I get myself into this? Literally write without stopping for 10 minutes and see how you get on. Now, I said I wanted to give a health warning. My health warning is it can make you feel a bit more churned up to write a journal. A certain level of this is normal. It's a bit like seeing a sad movie or having a conversation with somebody that makes you cry, but ultimately leaves you feeling comforted. So you have to be the best judge for yourself of whether this is a tool that is helping you in the moment. If you become overwhelmed by sadness or by trauma, if you're writing about a traumatic event, you are allowed to stop writing. You're allowed to do something else. You can write about a different topic. You can do something different and distract yourself. You can talk to somebody. So writing expressively in a journal like this can churn things up. That is not necessarily a bad thing in itself. Usually those feelings will pass within a couple of hours. If it is worse than that, stop writing or pick another topic, okay? I'd really love to know how you get on. I've put in my little blurby bit here that if you'd like a written copy of my top 3 tips for the research for getting started and what to write about, if you want that in a written format, which I've done for myself, you can see footnotes at the bottom because that's how nerdy I am. Either DM me on Facebook or connect with me on LinkedIn and put Psychologies in the subject line, and I'll email you these tips. Meanwhile, it is 1:15 in the afternoon here in the UK on Friday the 8th of May. At 1:30, Lucy Atkins is going to be live on our Psychologies magazine Instagram channel talking about how to write your novel. That's a different story. Thanks for joining me. See you soon. Bye.